declares that strong humans like these would make perfect offerings for the king. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's consciousness drifts elsewhere. Within his vision, countless portals begin to open one after another, filling the void with ominous energy. From within those rifts, endless armies emerge, marching forward with terrifying might. Jin-Woo recognizes them instantly. They are the armies of the monarchs. Among them is Kureisha, the plague monarch, Baran, the demon king, and Rakan, the beast monarch. Others also appear, powerful monarchs from distant clans such as Yagman and Legia. Among the advancing forces, a colossal wolf steps forth, radiating savage killing intent. Its very presence confirms that the beast monarch has arrived. The vast armies grind to a halt, assembling in formation before the Shadow Monarch. The air grows tense, heavy with anticipation. Both sides know what comes next. The stage is set, and the final battle is about to begin. The scene shifts back to the hunters inside the double dungeon, where they struggle to defend themselves against the architect and its stone soldiers. Choi Jong-in takes command of the situation. He instructs the hunters to use every skill they have and to move the wounded toward the back. The architect watches with disdain. It declares that by the time its puppets fall, anyone left alive will receive the great honor of witnessing the king's awakening, if any manage to survive. As one of the colossal statues charges forward, Choi Jong-in quickly orders everyone to take cover. The massive strike slams down, but Choi manages to dodge. He retaliates with a blazing fireball aimed directly at the statue's face. He urges the others to use this opening to destroy the remaining stone soldiers. Woo Jin-chul steps up and throws a powerful punch at the colossal statue. To his shock, the blow has no effect at all. Choi attacks again with another fireball, but even his magic fails to leave so much as a scratch. Panic spreads among the guild members as they realize none of their attacks are working. With options running out, Choi Jong-in comes to a conclusion. The only hope is to wake Sung Jin-Woo, who appears trapped as if under hypnosis. He hurls a fireball toward Jin-Woo, believing it to be the only way to break him free. But before the attack can land, the architect intercepts it and launches itself at Choi, furious that anyone would dare disturb the king's slumber. Choi freezes in shock, convinced this is the end for him. But before the architect can strike, Woo Jin-chul and several other hunters intercept its assault, barely saving him. Meanwhile, Sung Jin-Woo remains lost within his vision. He finds himself witnessing a colossal battle between the Shadow Army and countless demon clans. He observes how the shadows, even after being cut down, rise again endlessly. He thinks to himself that if those had been his soldiers, he would have already run out of mana. But the Shadow Monarch's power is different. It seems like a bottomless well of energy. Jin-Woo begins to wonder if the Shadow Monarch had not been aligned with the monsters after all, or if there was some deeper internal conflict between them. The battle rages until finally, silence falls across the battlefield. Corpses of both demons and shadows litter the ground. From amidst the carnage, the Shadow Monarch approaches the defeated leader of the demon clans. His voice is filled with fury as he demands to know why they betrayed him when they had the chance to end the war that day. The demon only responds with defiance, mocking that it is unfortunate he failed to eliminate the monarch. The monarch, enraged, demands an answer once more, but the creature snarls back in the demonic tongue. In his fury, the Shadow Monarch grabs the demon by the mouth and crushes its skull with his bare hand. Yet even that brutal strike is not enough to kill it. The monarch stares deeply into its eyes, puzzled, as though he recognizes them from somewhere before. He tears away the demon's helmet and at last realizes the truth. It is Baran, the demon king. Shocked, the monarch wonders why Baran was here among the clans. But then his attention falls to his own body. He looks down at his hands in confusion, and the truth becomes clear. The one fighting the demon clans and the silver soldiers had been Sung Jin-Woo himself all along. Jin-Woo reels at the revelation, stunned that he had not realized it sooner. Then in his chest he feels it, a heartbeat, but not just one. He discovers he has two hearts, one normal, human heart, and another dark and black. Before he can process what this means, silver soldiers begin to descend from the skies above. A cold notification echoes in his mind. Playback of retrieved data has ended. Back inside the double dungeon, the architect turns his attention to Cha Hai-in. He calls her interesting and challenges her to push beyond his designs. Cha launches forward with her sword dance, but the architect blocks the strike with ease. He counters immediately, his blow slashing across her shoulder. A sharp cry escapes her lips as pain overwhelms her. The architect explains coldly that the dungeon system anticipates every possible outcome. He reveals that their weapons, no matter how strong, are useless against his statues. Suddenly, Choi Jong-in intervenes, landing a surprise strike on the architect. His attack buys Cha the chance to dash toward Jin-Woo. But before she can reach him, she glances back, and her heart sinks. The architect has already appeared behind her, his hand stretching forward to grab her. Cha narrowly dodges, barely escaping his grasp. The architect notices something strange, a faint shadow lingering on her shoulder. With curiosity, he questions what her relationship is with Sung Jin-Woo. Cha replies firmly that she is his friend and that she came here to save him. The architect smiles ominously and declares that he will give her a chance. He states that, on this very day, one of the greatest monarchs in the world will rise. She may bear witness to it, but the rest of the humans will die. Before the architect can act further, another voice cuts through the chamber. A furious strike follows. Jin-Woo appears and smashes his fist across the architect's face, shattering its jaw. The creature crashes to the floor as Jin-Woo steps forward, demanding to know what had been done to his body. The hunters exhale in relief. Sung Jin-Woo has awakened. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo pins the architect down and crushes its head under his foot. The architect screams in protest, insisting that Jin-Woo is not the king. It cries out in disbelief that he can control himself even while bearing the black heart. From this, Jin-Woo realizes the truth. The overwhelming power coursing through him is coming directly from the black heart. A system notification appears. His mana has increased by 100,000. Jin-Woo studies the architect's reaction. This development was never intended. The black heart was not supposed to strengthen him. Even the retrieved data he had absorbed had not revealed the full truth. He questions the architect, demanding to know why he had opposed choosing him as a player. What was the purpose of selecting someone? What did the system truly intend to achieve? The architect, desperate, cries out that Jin-Woo has doomed them all. By claiming the Shadow Monarch's power, he has drawn the gaze of the other monarchs. They will not remain silent. Jin-Woo unsheathes his daggers, pressing for an answer. At the same time, panic spreads among the hunters. Around them, the once motionless statues begin to stir, coming to life once again. The architect warns that if Jin-Woo kills him, there will be no one left to stop the dolls. Jin-Woo responds coolly. If the architect dies, he will simply deal with the statues himself. The architect insists that if he perishes, the entire system will collapse. Jin-Woo smirks, remarking that there was always a chance he could return to being nothing more than an E-rank hunter. He reasons that even if the system's creator disappears, it does not mean the system itself will vanish. The architect desperately tries to access the system, but notifications flash repeatedly before him. Access denied. Stunned, he turns back toward Jin-Woo, who declares that he will not only destroy the system, he will swallow it whole. The architect rejects this as impossible, insisting that it must be a system error. Overcome with rage, he lunges forward, but Jin-Woo moves faster. With a swift motion of his daggers, he slices the architect into pieces. As the fragments of its body collapse to the ground, the architect utters one last prophecy. It warns that, when the pillars of fire that hold the heavens are raised, an inevitable death will approach your way. Jin-Woo, with a steely glint in his eyes and a cold smirk, simply responded, "As you please." Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, members of the association stood anxiously, waiting for the hunters to return. It had already been over an hour since the Hunter Guild entered, and the unease grew heavier with every passing minute. Whispers spread among them as they wondered what could possibly be happening inside a C-rank gate that required this much time. At last, movement appeared at the entrance. The hunters of the guild began to emerge one by one, but the sight that greeted the association members left them frozen in shock. The so-called elites of the Hunter Guild were in a dreadful state, battered, broken, and some never to rise again. Confusion and disbelief filled the air. The question that no one could answer lingered silently among them. What had actually happened inside a C-rank dungeon that could leave S-rank hunters in such a condition? Hunter Wu Jin-Cheo quickly stepped forward, his expression grim. He turned toward the Bravery Guild members who were present and requested their assistance in moving the bodies of the fallen. Still stunned by the sight, the guild members could only nod in silence before rushing to help. Amidst the chaos, another figure emerged from the gate. Sung Jin-Woo walked out quietly, his thoughts heavy. The battle with the system's architect was over, but many questions still lingered in his mind. Even with the architect gone, the mysteries of the system had not yet been unraveled. Once everyone had exited, Wu Jin-cheol approached Jin-Woo. His tone was heavy as he reported that nearly 20 of the nation's top elite hunters had lost their lives inside. If the incident had turned into a full-scale dungeon break, the devastation would have been beyond imagination. Unable to contain his curiosity, Wu asked Jin-Woo how he had known about the presence of a double dungeon hidden within that particular gate. In response, Jin-Woo explained that the dungeon had summoned him there. A message had appeared before him, instructing him to come. Wu asked if they could see this message for themselves, but Jin-Woo shook his head. It had been something only he could perceive. The sincerity in his voice and his expression convinced Wu Jin-cheol that this was no joke. He knew Sung Jin-Woo was not a man who fabricated stories. At that moment, Cha Hyen rushed over. Her eyes scanned Jin-Woo with concern as she asked how he was holding up. Jin-Woo reassured her that he was fine, yet the words had barely left his lips before his body faltered. Suddenly, he collapsed to the ground. The scene erupted into panic as the association members and hunters around him rushed forward, calling out in alarm. The story shifts to Japan, where massive trucks loaded with mana crystals rumbled toward the site of an S-rank gate. The crystals had been gathered in staggering quantities, prepared for a dangerous ritual. Watching the delivery, Hunter Yuri Orlov observed with satisfaction. In his estimation, nearly 200,000 tons of mana crystals were being transported, more than enough to fuel the enormous magic circle he had designed. With a wave of his hand, he activated the formation, weaving a vast barrier around the gate. The structure began to draw in magic power on its own, stabilizing the area. But then Orlov's expression hardened. He sensed something. When one of the men near him asked if something was wrong, Orlov dismissed the concern, claiming the barrier was flawless. Yet he could still feel a presence nearby. Turning sharply, he called out, demanding that the unseen watcher reveal themselves. No response came. A soldier standing beside him wondered aloud what sort of person would be foolish enough to linger near a gate that could break at any moment. To this, Orlov quietly replied that he had never said it was a person. High above, on the rooftop of a nearby building, a figure stood in silence, watching. His name was Song Il-hwan. With narrowed eyes, he noted how events were progressing, exactly as if they were part of a predetermined tragedy. Meanwhile, Japanese military forces began to surround the gate. Kana, one of the officials present, turned to Sugimoto with unease, asking why troops were being deployed when modern weapons were known to be useless against monsters. Sugimoto explained calmly that if Orlov's barrier failed, the soldiers would be used to stall for time until the first wave of hunters could arrive. Kana's face darkened as she realized the soldiers were nothing more than sacrificial pawns. Sugimoto, however, remained composed. He admitted that those in the association were no different, for in the end, they too stood on the front lines against calamities far greater than themselves. His gaze lingered on the gate as he muttered that humanity was about to witness just how powerless it truly was in the face of such disasters. Back at the gate, Yuri Orlov appeared confident. He believed that if things unfolded smoothly, he alone could handle the S-rank gate. He even entertained the thought of being remembered as the man who cleared an S-rank gate by himself. Yet he admitted begrudgingly, there was already someone far more fitting for such a title. With a grin, he uncorked a bottle, preparing to drink in celebration. A subordinate behind him warned that it might not be the best time. But Orlov only chuckled, declaring that he would soon put on the greatest show the man had ever seen. He downed the alcohol in one go, calming his nerves. He then turned and asked how many S-rank hunters were on standby for the operation. The answer came quickly, 15. His next question was why the United States had not sent reinforcements. The man reported grim news. An S-rank gate had appeared on the eastern coast of Maryland, while other gates had also emerged in England and India. As the two spoke, the situation worsened. The barrier trembled, and the massive gate before them began to crack, signaling the start of a break. At the same time, far away in Korea, Jin-Woo slowly opened his eyes. He awoke in a hospital bed, disoriented, and sat upright. By his side sat Jin-Ho, who had been faithfully waiting for him to wake. Jin-Woo asked what had happened. At the sound of his voice, Jin-Ho broke into tears, telling him that he had been unconscious for 3 long days. Without wasting a moment, Jin-Woo's thoughts turned immediately to Japan. He asked about the situation at the S-rank gate. The scene shifts to the day of the dungeon break. From the massive gate, colossal figures began to emerge. Giants, monsters so powerful that under normal circumstances a single one of them would serve as the final boss of an A-rank dungeon. But here, there were many. Confident in his preparations, Hunter Yuri Orlov activated his barrier, drawing upon the massive supply of mana crystals. The giants crashed against the shimmering wall of magic, but the barrier held firm. Orlov grinned, convinced that creatures from mere A-rank gates stood no chance against his magic. But his confidence quickly turned to horror. From within the gate, a giant far larger than the others stepped forward, its weapon gleaming in the light. With a single swing, the monster cleaved through the supposedly unbreakable barrier as though it were nothing but glass. The story then returns to the present. Jin-Ho sat beside Jin-Woo's hospital bed, explaining the chain of disasters that had occurred while his Hyung had been unconscious. Elsewhere, Chairman Yu Myung-han stirred awake in his office after a long rest. He turned to his secretary and asked how long he had been asleep. The man replied that it had been 23 hours. They had been prepared to send him to the hospital if he remained unconscious beyond 24, just as he had ordered. The secretary then handed over a stack of documents. Within them was information on a patient who had been miraculously cured of eternal slumber. According to the report, that patient was none other than the mother of Hunter Jin-Woo. Chairman Yu Myung-han's eyes narrowed as he considered the implications. He began to suspect that Jin-Woo himself might hold the ability to cure the incurable. Before he could dwell on it further, his secretary announced that someone had arrived to meet with him. A woman entered the office, her eyes immediately focusing on his weakened condition. She asked how long he had been like this. Back in Japan, the devastation of the dungeon break unfolded. Yuri Orlov, the man who had boasted of holding the gate alone, was devoured whole by one of the towering giants. His barrier shattered, his body vanished without a trace. The Japanese military responded swiftly, unleashing every weapon at their disposal. But modern firepower was useless against the creatures of an S-rank gate. Bullets and shells bounced harmlessly off their enormous bodies. Realizing the scale of the disaster, Japan's Hunter Association chairman, Matsumoto Shigeo, gave a desperate order. He commanded the remaining S-rank hunters to intercept the giants and halt their advance. Without hesitation, every available S-rank charged toward the battlefield. They targeted the giants' eyes, hoping to blind them, but the monsters proved unnervingly fast. Despite their immense size, they moved with shocking agility, dodging attacks that should have struck true. Hunter Kanai Takeda, watching in disbelief, could hardly comprehend what she was seeing. She wondered how such massive creatures could possibly move with such speed. Meanwhile, back in Korea, Jin-Woo sat in his room, watching footage of the battle in Japan. The images of the giants rampaging filled the screen. He reflected grimly that at this rate, just like during the Jeju Island raid, the entire Asian continent could soon be in danger. His thoughts turned to action. He began to consider leaving for Japan to personally deal with the dungeon break. But before he could make a decision, a familiar voice called out from behind him, urging him not to go. It was his younger sister, Sung-jin-ah. Startled, Jin-Woo asked what she meant. She explained that she knew he was planning to leave. Jin-Woo softened his voice and reassured her. He told her he wasn't going anywhere. Claiming he had been working too hard lately, he insisted that he only planned to rest for a while. He told her not to worry. Later that day, Jin-Woo sat outside in a quiet park, lost in thought. He summoned Beru, the Ant King, and asked about the condition of his sister. Beru responded that there was nothing abnormal about her behavior, but Jin-Woo wasn't convinced. He suspected she might be suffering from trauma. In the past, Jinnah had never tried to stop him from entering a raid, except for his very first one, 4 years ago. The memory weighed heavily on him as he wondered what he should do. As he walked through the park, a sleek car stopped in front of him. Time fast-forwarded, and the scene shifted to an office within the Yujin Construction Guild. Inside, the CEO, Yu Myung-han, rose from his seat to greet Jin-Woo. He introduced himself formally and gestured for him to sit. With deliberate care, Yu Myung-han placed a blank check on the desk between them. He explained that he was not arrogant enough to believe money could not buy anything, especially when dealing with an S-rank hunter. He asked Jin-Woo to consider it a token of sincerity. Jin-Woo studied the check silently. The gesture made him suspicious. Whatever he was about to hear would not be something as simple as a guild invitation. It was confidential. Finally, he spoke, asking what exactly Yu Myung-han wanted to buy from him. The CEO's expression hardened as he revealed the truth. He was suffering from the same illness that had once afflicted Jin-Woo's mother, eternal slumber. Jin-Woo asked whether Yu Jin-ho, his son, knew about this condition. Yu Myung-han shook his head. He explained that aside from his personal physician, only 3 people in the world were aware of his illness. He went on to explain that he had searched everywhere for a cure, but found nothing. In the end, his investigation led him to the only person who had ever recovered from eternal slumber, Jin-Woo's mother. He did not believe it was a coincidence. With desperation in his voice, he asked Jin-Woo to help him, vowing that he would never forget the kindness if his life was spared. As Jin-Woo listened, his mind drifted back to his sister. He wondered if perhaps she too might one day need a potion. Not for a disease, but for the trauma she carried within her heart. The scene shifts to Japan. Reporters fly above the devastated city, documenting the aftermath of the massive dungeon break. From their helicopters, they capture the destruction below. One reporter wonders aloud what would happen if the giants decided to target them. Another reassures that they're safe, as long as they maintain their distance. Researchers had already confirmed this behavior. It was considered reliable. Giants wouldn't strike unless provoked. The cameras zoom in on the colossal leader among the monsters. Unlike the others, this massive giant stood directly in front of the gate, guarding it closely. Some speculated it was waiting for something, or perhaps someone. In the past 2 days, only 2 of the 30 giants had been defeated. At this pace, if the rampage continued, the entire world would soon be at risk. Back in Korea, inside the Ajin Guild office, Yu Jin-ho sits in shock after hearing Sung Jin-Woo's plan. Jin-Woo intends to head to Japan. Jin-ho quickly protests. He reminds Jin-Woo that this wasn't like Jeju Island. The monsters in Japan were far more dangerous, far larger than anything they had faced before. But Jin-Woo responds calmly. If he succeeds in Japan, the name of the Ajin Guild would spread worldwide. Still, he notices that Jin-ho, who had always trusted him without hesitation, is worried this time. Eventually, Jin-ho agrees to let him go, but on one condition: they go together. He then points out something he'd been thinking about: the Red Gate, the Jeju Island raid, and the recent double dungeon. Every time something dangerous happened, Jin-ho had not been involved. He admits with some embarrassment that the only thing he could proudly claim was staying by Jin-Woo's side. It's strange, Jin-ho reflects, but you're my only source of pride. Jin-Woo can't help but smile. He jokes that such words don't sound like something a millionaire's son would say. Jin-ho replies firmly, if it's safe for Jin-Woo, then it'll be safe for him too. At that, Jin-Woo pretends to reconsider. Rising from his seat, he says casually that he was only joking. Why would he go to Japan right now? He tells Jin-ho to head home. But deep down, as he walks away, Jin-Woo recalls the architect from the double dungeon, an enemy who might have been on his level. If beings like that exist, then there are still countless others stronger than him in this vast world. Later, Jin-Woo arrives home and is warmly greeted by his mother. During dinner, he asks about Jinnah. His mother explains that Jinnah said she wasn't hungry. As he eats, Jin-Woo's thoughts drift to Yu Myung-han, Jin-ho's father, the powerful head of the Yu family. The man had claimed to suffer from the incurable eternal slumber. Jin-Woo doesn't truly know what kind of person he is, or whether his condition is genuine. The remaining holy water of life is limited. He has to be careful about how he uses it. After finishing his meal, Jin-Woo tells his mother he'll be heading out again. He knows there are beings stronger than him out there, and if he wants to reach that level, he must continue to fight on the battlefield. Before leaving, he enters Jenna's room. Sitting beside her, he hesitates, wondering where to start. Finally, he confesses that he had almost died recently. He explains softly that he's always walking into danger, but this time was different. For a moment, he truly thought it was the end. Somehow, he made it back alive, and for that, he's grateful every time he comes home. He pats her head gently and promises her he will return safely this time as well. He thanks her for stopping him earlier when he tried to leave. With tears welling in her eyes, Jenna whispers that he would have left anyway. Jin-Woo smiles faintly. Perhaps, but he reassures her once more. He will always come back. Time fast forwards to a press conference held by Chairman Go Gun-hee. Before the gathered media, he addresses the terrifying dungeon break in Japan. At the same time, Jin-Woo has already made his decision. He will go there himself and deal with the S-rank gate. At the airport, as Jin-Woo prepares to depart, he notices Yoo Jin-ho among the crowd. Despite being told not to follow, Jin-ho had managed to come along anyway. Realizing he won't back down, Jin-Woo sighs and reluctantly allows it. Together, the two prepare to board the plane bound for Japan. The story shifts to Japan once again. Chaos consumes the streets. The military desperately tries to evacuate civilians, shoving them onto trucks. A soldier shouts that there's only space for a few more people, 3 or 4 at most. The civilians hesitate, worrying about others left behind. The soldier urges them to stop wasting time. The giants are approaching, and if they stay, they'll all die. He tells them to find shelter quickly, but when he looks up, his eyes widen in terror. The giants have already found them. The soldiers unleash a hail of bullets, but their weapons are useless. One of the towering monsters stretches out its hand toward the survivors. Just as it's about to crush them, a massive trident pierces through its chest, sending the giant flying across several blocks before crashing lifeless into the rubble. The soldiers stare in disbelief. Who could have done this? Then they notice another monster-like figure. This one is protecting them. From the smoke, another figure steps forward, a lone man. He warns them to evacuate immediately. The area is no longer safe. That man is Sung Jin-Woo. At that moment, debris from a collapsing building begins falling toward the civilians. Yoo Jin-ho rushes forward, raising his massive shield just in time to protect them. He declares that he will stay behind and help the survivors escape. Hearing that, Jin-Woo prepares to take out all the monsters in the area. Alongside Jima, he charges at the creatures. The giants are no match for Jima's strength, and it takes out multiple enemies with ease. Seeing this, Jin-Woo then leaps forward himself. With a single strike of his dagger, he cleaves a giant cleanly in two. The story shifts across the ocean to the United States, inside the Scavenger Guild headquarters. Several hunters gather, gossiping about Sung Jin-Woo's bold actions in Japan. One hunter remarks that Lady Selner, the American Awakened Enhancer, had not boosted Jin-Woo's power. Another scoffs, saying that even with a reawakening, every hunter has limits, and Jin-Woo would eventually die if he kept throwing himself into such battles. Their idle chatter soon turns into a cruel game, as they begin betting on how long Jin-Woo might last in the raid against the giants. But their laughter suddenly stops when a powerful voice interrupts from behind. It is none other than Thomas Andre, the guildmaster of the Scavenger Guild and one of the world's strongest hunters. Thomas declares that he would bet the entire guild headquarters itself that Jin-Woo would survive. His words silence the room. Then with a cold glare, he warns the hunters to worry less about mocking others and more about themselves. A dungeon break in an American S-rank gate was only a day away, and he doubts many of them will even survive that battle. Looking out of the window with a grin, Thomas mutters that while Japan might have been entertaining, tomorrow's events in their own land would bring a different kind of spectacle. The scene then returns to Japan, where news outlets broadcast live footage of the battlefield. The chaos of the giant invasion fills every screen. Viewers watch as one of the monsters screams in agony, its flesh ripped apart as Ant King Baru's minions swarm and devour it alive. Elsewhere, a small girl runs through the ruins, desperately fleeing from a pursuing giant. Just as its massive hand is about to seize her, a figure clad in black armor appears like a shadow. It is Igris. With one swift strike, Igris slices off the monster's hand, saving the child. The giant bellows in pain, but before it can react, another shadow soldier charges forward. Iron slams into its skull with devastating force, crushing it into the earth. Standing triumphantly atop the corpse, Iron beats his chest proudly. Igris, watching his comrade's antics, lets out a subtle sigh, as if mildly exasperated by Iron's excitement. From a distance, Jin-Woo observes his soldiers at work. Watching Iron, he notes to himself that the knight seems more spirited after his upgrade. Still, Jin-Woo is relieved. His army is performing well. As he monitors the battlefield, a Japanese soldier cautiously approaches and expresses his gratitude. Not understanding the language, Jin-Woo simply responds with a thumbs up, calling the man a brave soldier before signaling to Jin-Ho. He orders Jin-Ho to assist with the evacuation of survivors. With the civilians gone, Jin-Woo turns his attention to the corpse of the fallen giant. Extending his hand, he channels shadow extraction, pulling its soul into his growing army of darkness. Meanwhile, at the Japanese Hunter Association headquarters, officials rush to inform Chairman Matsumoto Shigeo that their forces are gradually regaining control of the city thanks to Jin-Woo. Hearing this, Matsumoto leans back in his chair, deep in thought. He reflects that perhaps Goto Ryuji, who once clashed with Jin-Woo, had not been wrong after all. The memory of Jin-Woo's piercing eyes at the airport resurfaces. Matsumoto had encountered countless hunters before, but Sung Jin-Woo's presence was on another level, untouchable, unmatched. He recalls their meeting upon Jin-Woo's arrival in Japan. At that time, Matsumoto explained the dire situation. The giants were advancing toward Osaka, and he requested that Jin-Woo defend the city. Matsumoto had believed that no matter how strong Jin-Woo was, one man alone could not possibly defeat every giant in Japan. While Jin-Woo held the line, Matsumoto had planned to negotiate for international reinforcements. But Jin-Woo's reply had stunned him. Rather than agreeing to the defensive plan, Jin-Woo boldly declared that he would hunt down every single giant by himself. The narration returns to the present, where Jin-Woo stands before his new shadow soldiers. He considers giving them names, but instead decides to keep things simple by numbering them 1 through 5. Just as he finishes, Baru materializes before him, reporting that another enemy has been eliminated. Jin-Woo calmly names this new soldier number 6. Turning back to Jin-Ho, he tells his loyal companion to rest for now. Internally, Jin-Woo reflects that while things have been progressing smoothly, this is only the beginning. Across Japan, his shadow army spreads like wildfire. The soldiers are unstoppable, tearing through giant after giant. Their regenerative ability allows them to rise again, even after being defeated, making them an immortal force of destruction. However, the aftermath of the S-rank dungeon break has created further problems. Smaller rifts have opened throughout the country, releasing hordes of lesser monsters. As a result, the Japanese Association struggles to balance simultaneous evacuation efforts and suppression operations, barely keeping the chaos under control. 7 days later, Sung Jin-Woo and Yu Jin-Ho were still scouring the ruined city, searching for any remaining survivors and exterminating the last remnants of the giants. Eventually, their search brought them to the massive leader of the giants, stationed directly before the S-rank gate. Taking in the devastation around them, Jin-Ho sighed in dismay. To him, it felt as if everything had been completely ruined. Just then, a familiar voice called out. It was Hoshino Hankawa, the Japanese interpreter who had once traveled to Korea alongside Goto Ryuji. Jin-Woo immediately asked her about the whereabouts of the other hunters. Hankawa explained that she was the only one left in Tokyo. The rest had either perished or scattered in the chaos. She added that the giants had spread across the country, but thanks to Jin-Woo, the majority had already been annihilated. Now the few that remained were being hunted down by other awakened hunters in Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers. Hearing this, Jin-Woo concluded that only one remained, the colossal giant standing guard before the gate. As he surveyed the ruined city, a haunting thought entered his mind. The destruction before him reminded him of the demon castle. Could that endless wasteland have been a model? Did the system's architect design the demon castle as a reflection of this possible future? But the architect was already dead, and Jin-Woo hadn't received a single message or vision since. Perhaps that really had been the architect's true body. Regardless, Jin-Woo resolved not to allow this future to come to pass. That was the reason he had trained, the reason he pushed himself to wield power no one else could match. With renewed determination, he turned to Hankawa and said they were ready to move. Hankawa hesitated, telling him that the other hunters hadn't yet arrived. But Jin-Woo assured her calmly that they had. Meanwhile, Kino grumbled in frustration, complaining about how exhausting and annoying this ordeal was. Minoru quickly reminded her that they should at least be grateful to still be alive. Hankawa, however, could not hold back her frustration. She vented that Jin-Woo and his shadow army were pushing forward on their own, dominating giants that Japanese hunters couldn't even dare to approach. To her, it felt as if they were only here to clean up scraps, an infuriating realization. As she voiced her thoughts, shadows began to ripple across the battlefield. Jin-Woo's army started returning to him, the air growing heavy with their presence. Then, Beru emerged from the dark mass, kneeling before his master. Jin-Woo asked if the task was complete. When Beru confirmed, Jin-Woo praised his soldiers for their efforts. He then ordered Jin-Ho to escort Hankawa to safety. Once they departed, Jin-Woo turned back to the battlefield. Stretching out his hand, he began performing shadow extraction on the countless corpses of fallen giants. One after another, towering shadows rose, forming monstrous copies of the giants. With his army swelling in both strength and numbers, Jin-Woo gave a final command. All soldiers were to charge directly at the massive giant standing guard before the S-rank gate. The army roared to life, surging forward in unison, while Jin-Woo chose to remain behind and observe the fight unfold. The giant, sensing the wave of approaching shadows, prepared itself. In a sudden burst, it unleashed a devastating mana wave. The attack cleaved through the shadow army with ease, scattering them by the dozens. Watching from a distance, Jin-Woo was stunned. The giant had killed 100 of his soldiers with a single swing. He couldn't deny the overwhelming magic power it radiated. The oppressive aura was so intense that even he felt a primal urge to flee. But Jin-Woo knew there were only two ways to escape such a suffocating pressure. Either run away and forget it, or completely destroy the source. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the giant refused to falter. The shadows were unable to close the distance, and even when they launched mana-based attacks, the creature remained unharmed. At one point, it casually caught a fireball in its bare hand, before tearing through more of Jin-Woo's summoned giants. When insect-type shadows swarmed at its feet, the giant simply crushed them underfoot without effort. Beru, enraged by the sight, stepped forward, prepared to leap into battle. But Jin-Woo raised a hand and stopped him. It wasn't time yet. For now, he had to keep pressing forward until he discovered the creature's weakness. His mana reserves were still plentiful, allowing him to continually regenerate his fallen soldiers. Yet even with relentless assaults, the giant's body showed no visible damage. It was then that Jin-Woo realized the truth. The giant's immense mana was acting like armor, wrapping around its body and shielding it from all physical blows. But he also remembered something. Earlier, the creature had flinched and instinctively blocked when a fireball nearly struck its face. That small reaction gave him the clue he needed. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo summoned Kaizel, along with his strongest shadow generals, Beru and Igris. Beru immediately sprang forward, his wings blurring with incredible speed as he aimed straight for the giant's eye. But the creature moved at the last moment, narrowly dodging the lethal strike. Meanwhile, Igris, mounted on Kaizel, swoops down from above and unleashes lightning magic. A powerful beam shoots toward the giant's face, but the creature twists at the last moment, narrowly avoiding the strike. From the ground, Jin-Woo observes the exchange and quickly deduces the truth. The giant's weak point lies in its face. Its mana is concentrated on protecting its lower body, leaving its head vulnerable. The creature retaliates with a crushing blow that sends Kaizel spiraling out of control, forcing the wyvern out of the fight. Just as the giant begins to press its advantage, it suddenly notices Igris charging head-on toward its face. The giant instinctively raises its hand, blocking Igris's attack. But that brief distraction is all Jin-Woo needs. In a flash, he closes the distance and strikes, landing a devastating blow that tears into the giant's flesh. The creature lets out a thunderous scream of pain. Before it can recover, Beru dives in with relentless ferocity, keeping the giant's attention locked on him. This gives Jin-Woo the perfect opening to prepare his next move. Summoning every dagger in his arsenal, Jin-Woo channels his strength through ruler's authority. The blades float around him, then surge forward in unison, raining down on the giant's face with lethal precision. From a distance, Jin-Ho and Hankawa watch the battle in stunned silence. Hankawa mutters in disbelief, realizing that this no longer resembles a fight between hunters and monsters. Instead, it looks like a clash between monsters themselves. Back in the fray, Jin-Woo channels his power into a violent slash, ripping straight through one of the giant's eyes. The creature bellows in agony, clutching its face. At that moment, Jin-Woo signals to Baru. Without hesitation, the insectoid monarch darts forward, slipping into the creature's skull through the gaping eye socket. As Baru tears it apart from within, Jin-Woo continues his assault from the outside, unleashing blow after blow. The giant convulses, blood spewing from its mouth as its body falters. With one final shudder, it collapses to the ground, its massive form shaking the battlefield. And then, the familiar system notification appears before Jin-Woo's eyes. You have defeated the enemy. Standing before the lifeless body, he pondered the meaning of the message. But something felt strange. Jin-Ho rushed over, full of excitement, praising Jin-Woo's strength and congratulating him for taking down the giant. Yet Jin-Woo's sharp instincts told him something was off. If that had truly been the dungeon's boss, there should have been a system message declaring the dungeon cleared. His eyes narrowed. The raid wasn't over. Looking closer at the giant's body, he realized something else. There was no black smoke rising from it. Without that smoke, he couldn't extract its shadow. A chilling sensation ran through him, and he quickly signaled Jin-Ho to step back. Just then, the corpse stirred. From the giant's mouth, Baru emerged, his massive form radiating menace. Jin-Woo studied the situation carefully. Even in death, the giant's body held an immense magical presence, one that still rivaled Baru's own. Before he could dwell on it, the gate itself began to glow with blinding light. Jin-Woo instantly recognized the danger. It was a violent surge of magic power, a storm strong enough to tear flesh. He turned immediately to check on Jin-Ho. To his relief, Igris had already moved, standing like a shield in front of Jin-Ho, protecting him from the storm. Then something strange caught Jin-Woo's eye. The gate wasn't just releasing magic. It was absorbing the giant's remaining power. He touched his face and noticed a thin cut across his cheek. Just from the storm's magic pressure, his skin had been sliced open. This was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He told Jin-Ho to stay behind. Without hesitation, he stepped toward the gate, preparing to enter and uncover the truth. With one leap, Jin-Woo crossed the threshold and found himself in a massive corridor, built on a scale fit for giants. As he walked deeper, Baru appeared by his side, remarking that he could hear something nearby. Jin-Woo agreed. It wasn't an ordinary sound, it was a sinister laugh. A voice then echoed throughout the chamber, mocking the rulers and declaring amusement at their struggles. At the center of the chamber, Jin-Woo saw it, a massive giant, bound tightly in chains. The creature raised its head, its voice desperate, urging to be freed. It claimed to know the ruler's true plans and begged to deliver this knowledge to the other monarchs. But then its gaze sharpened. Realization dawned, and it said that Jin-Woo was not the person it had expected. Jin-Woo asked whether the rulers were responsible for imprisoning him. The chain giant confirmed they were, explaining that he was being used as a tool, a stepping stone for the rulers to prepare the battlefield for an inevitable war. Jin-Woo studied him carefully. He had spoken with intelligent magical beasts before, but none had been able to explain their true origins. Perhaps this one could. He asked the chained monarch what he knew about the rulers. The giant replied that they were the ancient enemies of the monarchs. Jin-Woo's mind raced. If the rulers were enemies of the monarchs, then by extension, were they also his enemies? He pressed further, asking if the chains binding him were proof of being a monarch. The giant nodded and revealed his true identity. The monarch of the beginning, king of giants. He warned Jin-Woo that both rulers and monarchs sought him. With his current strength, Jin-Woo was not yet ready to stand against either side. To survive, he would need allies and influence. Jin-Woo demanded proof of his words. The monarch then began chanting in an ancient tongue. A system notification appeared before Jin-Woo. The monarch of the beginning has activated the skill, Oath of Truth. Accepting the pact, Jin-Woo felt the weight of the contract. Neither he nor the monarch could speak lies until the oath was annulled. Again, Li Jie asked for freedom, promising aid against Jin-Woo's enemies. Jin-Woo attempted to respond with false assurance, but found himself unable to. The oath bound his words. Li Jie explained this was the power of the truth-binding contract. Jin-Woo could not lie now. Curious, Jin-Woo asked why Li Jie could speak with such clarity, unlike the other monsters from the gates. Li Jie realized Jin-Woo was referring to the creatures of chaos, the mindless beasts who poured out of dungeons. He explained that those were prisoners of the rulers, locked away for so long that their minds had decayed, leaving them nothing but beasts. He, however, was different. He was a king. He had retained his sanity, enduring countless years in chains, waiting for this very moment of release. Jin-Woo then asked if the silver-winged soldiers were also part of the ruler's forces. Li Jie confirmed it, adding that the rulers were already preparing for a war against the monarchs. Jin-Woo questioned why they sent endless waves of monsters into humanity's world. Li Jie revealed the truth. Their purpose was not to destroy, but to prepare. By injecting magic power into Earth, little by little, they were transforming it into a battlefield capable of withstanding the clash between rulers and monarchs. Magic stones and crystals, what humanity thought were blessings, were in fact part of this grand design. The blood and deaths of hunters and civilians alike were the very fuel transforming the planet. Jin-Woo finally understood. The world was being prepared for war. When Jin-Woo asked what war Li Jie meant, the monarch's answer was simple: the rematch between rulers and monarchs. And Earth would become the front line of that conflict far sooner than Jin-Woo expected. The giant then warned that Jin-Woo himself was a target. The power he wielded was not truly his own. By inheriting it, he had marked himself as an enemy to both sides. Yet Li Jie swore that he would stand by Jin-Woo's side in the battles to come. Jin-Woo, however, remained suspicious. If Li Jie truly wanted to help, wouldn't it be easier to join him as a shadow soldier? At that moment, the monarch froze. Behind Jin-Woo, he saw something, a figure cloaked in darkness, the true presence of the Shadow Monarch. He tells Jin-Woo that rulers and monarchs are bound to spiritual forms. When they die, they can't become shadows. Li Jie then asks, "Was that enough to convince you to help me?" Jin-Woo draws his weapon, slowly approaching. He understands the situation, but something feels off. He senses he's missing a crucial detail. As he begins to free Li Jie, Jin-Woo asks, "You said you'll stay by my side, right?" Li Jie replies, "Of course. If you help me, I will help you. This is a fair and absolute deal between monarchs." But Jin-Woo, still wary, asks, "Are you on the human side?" Li Jie remains silent. Jin-Woo repeats the question, "Why aren't you answering? Is it because of the oath of truth?" Then Jin-Woo notices something. There's a magical crystal embedded at the back of Li Jie's neck. He realizes, as long as that stone exists, you must be hearing the ruler's commands, just like every other monster, telling you to kill humans. Li Jie lunges, but Jin-Woo dodges, saying, "The deal's off." He stabs Li Jie through the chest. "You're too dangerous to let live. You could become a calamity." Li Jie, wounded, looks at Jin-Woo and says, "You're wrong. The true calamity is you." He tries to attack again, but Jin-Woo is faster. He strikes back, though even that isn't enough to kill the monarch of the beginning. Using his last bit of strength, Li Jie warns Jin-Woo, "As the battles between the people of Earth and the residents of chaos grow more frequent, the world will become a more intense war zone. I pray that everything you hold dear turns to ash, burned by the karma of war." Jin-Woo finishes him with the final blow. It won't go as you hope. A system notification appears. "You have defeated Li Jie, one of the 9 original monarchs. It adds that a great amount of experience has been earned, and it may take time to process." Jin-Woo picks up a piece of metal from the ground and mutters, "Too bad I didn't get a shadow soldier. But I'll take this as a souvenir." As he stepped out of the dungeon, another message appeared before him. "You have reached level 122. The scene shifts to America, where a helicopter descends onto a private estate. Director David Brennan of the Hunter Bureau steps out, accompanied by Miss Selner, the mysterious woman gifted with foresight. They are greeted by Christopher Reed, one of the world's national-level hunters. Surprised by the unannounced visit, Christopher remarks that he hadn't expected any visitors today. Director Brennan explains that they have an urgent matter to discuss and requests complete privacy. With a nod, Christopher instructs his secretary to ensure no one approaches his office until the meeting is over. Once inside, the three take their seats. Christopher, still curious, asks why they have come. He makes it clear that he has no intention of joining the S-rank gate raid that recently appeared in the East. But Selner calmly assures him that their visit is not about the gate. Her expression turns grave as she delivers a chilling warning. Christopher's life may soon be in danger. The hunter freezes in disbelief. Anger quickly flashes across his face. Though he respects Selner for what she once did for him, he insists they are not close enough for such a cruel joke. He demands to know who would dare to target a man like him. Selner does not waver. She tells him that she had a dream, a vision where he was surrounded by men, his life at risk. But Christopher, growing impatient, cuts her off. He calls it nonsense, unable to believe that she traveled all this way to warn him about a dream. Tension fills the room as Christopher reminds her of the rumors about her past. Before awakening her current gift, she had once been a psychic. Some believed her strange powers came from that background, but none of it mattered to him. With a hardened expression, he declares that, as a national-level hunter, no one on Earth can kill him. Still, after a pause, his tone shifts slightly. Calmer now, he poses a hypothetical question. If he were to believe her vision, who exactly should he turn to for help? Selner's answer is clear. There may be someone capable of standing against even the greatest of threats, Sung Jin-Woo. She insists that he may be the only person who can protect Christopher. The scene shifts to Japan. Emerging from the S-rank dungeon, Jin-Woo reflects on the battle he had just endured. He acknowledges to himself that killing the monarch had been the right decision. Even while bound in chains, the enemy had radiated suffocating levels of mana, enough to crush those around him. Jin-Woo knew that uncovering the giant king's true intentions before he could act had spared the world from disaster. Fast forward, and news spreads rapidly across the globe. The giants in Japan have all been eliminated. Social media erupts with speculation about the identity of a possible new national-level hunter. Unlike the Jeju Island raid, which was seen mostly as a Korean triumph, this time the entire world is paying attention. Meanwhile, in China, the last surviving giant that had crossed the sea is brought down by Liu Zhigang, the nation's own national-level hunter. Back in Japan, scandal follows triumph. Matsumoto Shigeo, head of the Japanese Hunter Association, turns himself in to the authorities. His sudden confession stuns the public. Though his true motivations remain unclear, many believe he sought to take responsibility for his betrayal during the Jeju Island raid, when he endangered Korean hunters for Japan's gain. Meanwhile, in the United States, hunters who had just cleared an S-rank gate gather for a lavish government-sponsored celebration. Members of the Scavenger Guild talk among themselves, impressed by the scale of the event and how the government spared no expense. It is then that America's strongest hunter arrives, Thomas Andre, one of the 5 national-level hunters. Towering and full of confidence, he greets his guild with a grin. In a playful mood, he teases them about a wager they had made, putting one member on the spot. The hunter nervously insists that he hadn't bet anything at all, which only amuses Thomas further. He jokes about taking the man's tie as a prize, leaning in with mock seriousness. Turning to his assistant, Laura, Thomas asks how he looks. With her usual bluntness, she remarks that although the tie is expensive, it clashes terribly with his Hawaiian shirt. Laughing at her honesty, Thomas removes the tie, agreeing with her. Once the humor fades, Laura provides an important update. She reports the list of guilds set to attend the upcoming International Guild Conference. Among them, one name catches Thomas's attention: the Jin Guild, newly created in Korea. Laura confirms that the guild belongs to none other than Sung Jin-Woo. At once, Thomas's playful demeanor shifts. His interest sharpens as he realizes what this means. Soon, Sung Jin-Woo will be coming to the United States. Back in Korea, Sung Jin-Woo cleared the remaining dungeon breaks across the city. With the crisis finally under control, he stood before a row of giants he had turned into shadow soldiers. He observed his new forces, remarking that it was unfortunate one had managed to escape across the ocean. Still, the gains far outweighed the loss. His army had grown stronger, and the onlookers behind him couldn't hide their astonishment. Seeing their reaction, Jin-Ho smirked, thinking it was no surprise they were shocked witnessing his abilities for the first time. He then noticed Hunter Hoshino approaching, telling him that someone was on the phone asking for him. After answering, Jin-Woo was surprised to hear what the caller said. It was Yu Jin-Ho, telling him he had to return to Korea. Jin-Woo asked if something had happened. Jin-Ho admitted he wasn't entirely sure, but said his mother had called and sounded shaken. Something had come up regarding family matters, and he couldn't ignore it. Though concerned, Jin-Woo agreed and allowed him to leave. As Jin-Ho departed, he thought back to his mother's trembling voice. He had never heard her sound that way before, and unease settled in his chest. Upon landing in Korea, Jin-Ho was met by his father's assistant. The man informed him that a car had been prepared to take him directly to the hospital. His tone was grave as he advised Jin-Ho to brace himself for what he was about to see. During the drive, the assistant explained the situation. By the time they arrived, Jin-Ho's father was lying unconscious in a hospital bed, caught in what doctors called an eternal sleep. Shaken, Jin-Ho tried to rush inside, but the assistant stopped him. He warned that a hunter unable to fully control his mana could worsen his father's condition simply by being near. Instead, the assistant handed him a notebook. He explained that this was something the chairman had been working on before collapsing. At first, he had kept it aside in hopes the chairman would wake up to ask for it, but now it seemed more fitting for Jin-Ho to have it. Opening the notebook, Jin-Ho's eyes blurred with tears. The pages were filled with clippings of newspaper articles, every single one about him and Sung Jin-Woo. Jin-Ho managed a faint smile through his tears. He realized his father still had the same old habit of collecting clippings of everything that mattered to him. The assistant added gently that the book didn't only contain articles about Jin-Woo. Inside were newspaper features of Jin-Ho's own achievements as well, his competitions, exhibitions, and even his recent ventures. His father had kept all of them. The assistant explained softly that it wasn't a lack of love. The chairman's expectations had simply been as immense as the love he felt for his son. Wiping his eyes, Jin-Ho listened silently as the assistant suggested returning to the residence. As they began to leave, Jin-Ho paused. He suddenly felt as though someone was nearby, watching him. Turning around, he saw nothing. The assistant asked if something was wrong. Jin-Ho shook his head and replied it was nothing before continuing on. Unbeknownst to him, Jin-Woo had been there all along, hidden under the cloak of stealth. Standing silently in the hospital room, he gazed at Jin-Ho's unconscious father. Softly, he whispered that the scene was making him emotional. Then he produced a bottle of healing potion and carefully opened it. Outside the hospital, Yu Jin-hee, Jin-Ho's sister, had just arrived. As she entered the building, she briefly crossed paths with Jin-Woo, who slipped past her quietly. Not recognizing him, she ignored it and continued on her way to see her father. When she entered the hospital room, she froze. To her shock, her father was sitting upright in bed, awake and looking at her. Overcome with emotion, tears streamed down her face as she rushed to his side. Before long, doctors arrived, completely stunned. They explained that the man had awakened from what had been classified as an eternal sleep, something that had never been recorded in medical history. One doctor muttered in disbelief, unable to imagine how the media would react once the news broke. Outside, Jin-Woo walked calmly down the street. He murmured to himself that it was a little early, but wished Jin-Ho a happy birthday nonetheless.